Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. The loudest people in the room are rarely the ones winning. They're often just performing. But real power, real greatness, it moves in silence. It shows up unannounced. It grinds in the dark and emerges in the light so loud, so undeniable that the world has no choice but to listen. See, everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants the applause, the claps, the likes, the shares. But what they don't realize is applause doesn't build pies, consistency does. Applause doesn't deposit checks. Discipline does. Applause doesn't build character. Sacrifice does. The ones who win in life, they understand the most important work happens when nobody's watching, when nobody's clapping, and when everybody's doubting. You don't have to announce your moves. You just have to make them. You don't need to prove them wrong with your words. Prove them wrong with your life. The gym is silent at 5 a.m. The library is quiet when the streets are loud. The early morning grind doesn't trend, and the late night hustle doesn't get hashtags. But that's where champions are made, in the places no one sees, during the hours no one celebrates. And the truth is, if you're doing it for the applause, you're already lost. But if you're doing it for the purpose, if you're doing it for the future, if you're doing it for the vision that won't let you sleep at night, now you're dangerous. Because a person with vision backed by silence and discipline becomes unstoppable. Let them doubt you. Let them overlook you. Let them underestimate you. Because one day they'll have to look up just to see where you've landed. They laughed when you started. They'll be speechless when you arrive. But hear me, you don't owe the world your plans. You owe yourself your result. You don't need to convince them. You need to convert the pain into power, the rejection into redirection, the doubt into drive. This is not about getting even. It's about going further. It's not about making noise now. It's about making history later. You see, the seed never brags about the harvest. The caterpillar never announces it's about to become a butterfly. But when that flower blooms, when those wings spread, when the growth is undeniable, everybody takes notice. Not because you screamed for attention, but because the result was too loud to ignore. That's what real success does. It speaks for you when you're not in the room. It echoes your name in spaces your feet haven't even entered. That's why you hustle in silence, because the silence isn't empty. It's full of preparation. It's full of prayer. It's full of perseverance. And every quiet moment is stacking up, brick by brick, into a story they'll one day study. Understand this, greatness doesn't need a microphone. It needs a mirror. Every single day you wake up and face yourself, your excuses, your fears, your laziness, your old habits, and you decide to do better, not for the camera, not for the audience, but for the future version of you who's counting on this moment. Because while they're watching, you're working. While they're talking, you're training. While they're scrolling, you're building. And it's not easy. No one said it would be. You'll want to quit. You'll want to scream. You'll wonder if it's worth it. But here's the difference. Champions whisper to themselves when the world is silent. They say, keep going. They say, don't stop. They say, this storm won't break me. It will build me. You've got to build in the dark what will shine in the light. You've got to bleed behind the scenes so the world sees the victory, not the scars. You've got to sweat in secret so your legacy roars in public. And don't rush it. Don't rush your process. The tree that grows fast doesn't grow strong, but the one that grows slow, deep and grounded, it survives storms. It withstands seasons. Let your roots run deep. Let your silence be sacred, because silence is strategy. The enemy can't target what he can't see. The doubters can't sabotage what they don't know. Your circle gets smaller. Your vision gets clearer. Your purpose gets louder. Not through noise, but through focus. Because here's the truth. People don't respect loud ambition. They respect loud results. They respect outcomes. They respect the moment when they realize you were working, while they were laughing, when they realized you were committed, when they were comfortable, when they realized you never needed a spotlight, because your shine came from within. So build it quietly, train privately, work relentlessly. And when it's time, oh, when it's time, let your results do the talking. Let your story scream what your lips never had to say. because there's a certain power that comes from not needing to prove anything. That's the power of peace. That's the power of inner validation. That's the power of being your own competition. And that kind of energy, it can't be copied. It can't be manufactured. It's earned in the trench. It's developed in the silence. Let them flaunt today. You're building for tomorrow. Let them post now. You're preparing for permanence. Let them trend. You're transforming. Because when success comes, and it will, it'll be the loudest thing in the room. Not because you shout, but because the weight of what you built can't be ignored. And people will say, where did they come from? But you'll know, you didn't come out of nowhere. You came out of everywhere they weren't willing to go. You came out of early mornings, late nights, broken moments, quiet prayers, and relentless days. You came out of pain that taught you purpose. You came out of hunger that couldn't be faked. You came out of a season that forced you to grow or die. You were born in silence, forged in obscurity, but destined to roar. And when it's all said and done, you won't need to tell your story. It'll be written on the lives you changed, the doors you opened, the standard you raised, the legacy you built. So stop explaining, stop performing, stop begging people to understand your grind. Just build, just focus. And when the noise comes, let it be from the echo of your footsteps. As you walk into rooms, they said, you'd never enter. Let it be from the applause you didn't chase, but earned. Let it be from the applause you didn't chase, but earned. Let it be from the lives that watched you go from forgotten to unforgettable. Because real success, it doesn't yell, it doesn't brag, it doesn't seek attention. It just shows up, loud, powerful, unapologetic. So hush the noise, block out the distractions, move like a shadow, work like a warrior, believe like a prophet, and rise like a storm. Hustle in silence. Let success be the noise. There's something sacred about the grind. No one witnesses. That space where it's just you, your thoughts, and the work. No filters, no audience, no validation, just action. It's in that space that your future is negotiated. Not with luck, but with intention. You don't wait for the conditions to be perfect. You create momentum in chaos. You rise in resistance. You sharpen your edge in solitude. You see silence as not emptiness. It's capacity. It's potential. It's the incubator of transformation. When you walk away from distractions, the need to prove, the thirst for attention, you walk into power. You step into mastery. You gain time, you gain clarity, and you gain control. Because what you don't broadcast can't be ridiculed. What you don't announce can't be blocked. When you preserve your vision, you protect your peace. Not every seed needs to be shown. Some need to be shielded, nurtured beneath the soil, until their roots are strong enough to burst through concrete. And when they bloom, they won't need to ask for respect. They'll command. There are levels to this journey, and most people quit at discomfort. But those who embrace the discomfort, who wrestle with the doubt, who push through the tired, who bleed in the quiet, they evolve. They go from merely surviving to mastering, from fitting in to breaking out. And mastery, that's a silent process. The pianist doesn't master his art on stage. He does it in the practice room, repeating scales while no one listens. The entrepreneur doesn't build a fortune with an audience. She does it while sacrificing weekends, turning down parties, and studying when the world sleeps. The athlete doesn't become a champion under stadium lights. He becomes one in the lonely, early morning hours when the body aches and the mind screams, quit. But you keep going, not for fame, not for likes, not for approval, but because something in you refuses to settle. Something in you knows you were made for more. And that more isn't loud. It's buried deep inside, waiting on you to rise to its frequency. You've got to develop the discipline to be unnoticed, to build without credit, to serve without thanks, to create without applause. Because those who need recognition early rarely finish strong, but those who need purpose, they finish with legacy. Purpose doesn't always feel exciting. Some days it feels like failure, like exhaustion, like invisibility. But that's the test. Can you keep building when no one's watching? Can you honor your calling even when the platform hasn't shown up yet? Because here's what they won't tell you. The journey will humble you. It'll strip you of ego, of entitlement, of shortcuts. You'll learn to find value not in what the world says about you, but in what you say to yourself when everything is quiet. You'll discover that the loudest motivation is the one that whispers, keep going, even when every circumstance says stop. Real growth happens in obscurity. Real transformation doesn't beg for validation. It just is. And the truth is, you don't have to announce your next level. You just have to live it. Walk into the room like you own it, not because of arrogance, but because you built yourself to belong there. That kind of quiet confidence doesn't need marketing. It doesn't need permission. It doesn't flinch under pressure. It walks with presence, but you can't fake this. You can't cheat silence. You can't shortcut depth. What you haven't earned, you can't sustain. That's why this season matters. This unseen season where you're grinding, shaping, evolving. This is the foundation. Get it right, and you'll never need to look over your shoulder. Get it wrong, and everything you build will eventually collapse. So make it count. Make the sleepless nights mean something. Make the sacrifices sacred. Make the process the reward. Because when you get to where you're going, when the success finally makes noise, you'll know exactly what it cost. You'll walk different, speak different, lead different, because you paid the price in full and you didn't ask for a discount. People will ask you what changed, and you'll just smile because they won't understand the nights you spent doubting yourself but choosing to believe anyway. They won't see the tears you cried in silence, the hours you put in when nobody noticed, the courage it took to keep showing up. But that's okay. That's not for them to understand. Your success is the answer. Your consistency is the explanation. Your presence is the proof. Don't envy those who shine quickly. Envy the ones who last, because shine without substance is short-lived. But those who build from the inside out, they outlive trends. They outlast noise. They remain. So if you're in a silent season, lean into it. If you're grinding with no results, keep going. If you're building with no audience, trust the process. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared. You are being positioned. When it's time, you won't need to introduce yourself. The world will already know your name. Keep your head down. Keep your soul grounded. Keep your vision clear. Let them underestimate you. Let them talk. Let them bet against you. Because when it's your time to rise, it will be undeniable. In your silence, it will have spoken louder than 1,000 declarations. Let success echo. Let discipline guide. Let your life speak. Let the noise begin. They're not performing for attention. They're preparing for impact. You won't see their breakthroughs coming because they don't send announcements. They just arrive fully formed, like thunder following lightning. Quiet at first, but impossible to ignore. Once it hits, success at its core is the culmination of invisible choices, the ones made when no one else is around to give you credit. The nights you close tabs that distract, the mornings you get up when sleep seduces, the hours spent refining, correcting, learning, not for applause but for alignment. Every time you choose vision over comfort, every time you pick consistency over clout, you pull your future a little closer. But make no mistake, you will be tempted to prove, to flaunt, to respond. Don't. Your power comes from restraint. Real maturity is realizing you don't need to react. You don't need to validate yourself through noise. That kind of strength scares people. It unsettles them because silence backed by mastery is more terrifying than the loudest brag. There's a rhythm to greatness, and it doesn't match the world's tempo. While everyone else is sprinting to be seen, the wise are pacing themselves to be significant. You're not in a race to be famous. You're in a mission to be fulfilled, and fulfillment can't be fast-tracked. It's built slowly. It's built deeply. It's built quietly. You ever watch how storms form? They gather in silence, build pressure over time, and then out of nowhere, they change everything. That's you. Every small invisible choice is gathering momentum. Every sacrifice is pressure. Every rejection is wind at your back. And one day you'll release it all. Not in anger, not in noise, but in the undeniable presence of a life well built. And by then, no one will ask you to explain yourself. They'll see it, they'll feel it, because truth doesn't need to be defended when it's embodied. But here's where most people fail. They confuse being unseen with being unworthy. Don't make that mistake. Just because they don't notice your progress doesn't mean you're not progressing. Growth isn't always obvious. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Sometimes it looks like resistance. Sometimes it looks like being buried, when in fact, you're being planted. And planted things don't panic. They trust the process. So stop seeking constant confirmation. Your vision was given to you, not to the crowd. Don't expect the masses to understand what you were born to do. Don't expect validation from people who fear silence because they've never faced themselves in it. You have. That's why your silence has weight. It's rooted in clarity. Most people are loud because they're unsure. You're quiet because you're certain. And that certainty, that inner knowing, that's your edge. Because when the noise fades, when the trends shift, when the cameras stop rolling, only those who did the internal work will still be standing, still building, still becoming. You must be willing to disappear for a season, to become so focused on execution that visibility becomes irrelevant. Let them wonder, let them guess, let them misread your absence. That mystery is your power. It creates distance. It builds anticipation. It separates the authentic from the artificial. Think of the legends, the icons, the masters of their craft. They didn't rise through noise. They rose through discipline. They outlasted the hype. They remained when others burned out because they were not addicted to attention. They were addicted to purpose. Let that be your fuel. Purpose over pride, vision over vanity, substance over spotlight. Let your decisions reflect your destiny. Let your actions mirror your ambition. Don't just say you want to be great. Prepare like it, study like it, heal like it, move like it. Because the world isn't waiting for another echo. It's waiting for an original. And you can't be original if you're always reacting. You've got to go quiet long enough to hear your own thoughts, your own voice, your own conviction. And from that space, that sacred, uninterrupted space, something unstoppable emerges. So take the meetings no one knows about. Read the books no one recommended. Build the version of you that won't need to introduce itself, because presence alone will speak. There's a confidence that comes from readiness, from real work, from real growth, not just knowing your worth, but proving it to yourself, not by shouting, but by showing, not by convincing, but by becoming. And yes, it's lonely. Silence isn't always comfortable, but solitude is where you strengthen the roots of who you are. It's where your character gets tested and your resilience gets refined. It's where you stop performing and start transforming. Everyone wants the stage. Few are willing to build the floorboards beneath it. But when you build deep enough, when you sacrifice long enough, the platform finds you. You don't chase it, you attract it. Because real success recognizes authenticity, and authenticity is born in silence. So stay grounded, stay faithful to the process. Stop checking metrics and start measuring mastery. Stop chasing noise and start cultivating value. Let every small step be a declaration, not to them but to yourself, that you're not here to be seen, you're here to be unforgettable. And when the moment finally comes, when all the quiet work becomes undeniable, you'll walk into it with grace, with humility, with that stillness that says, I didn't need to shout. I just needed to show up fully prepared. That's what the greats do. And now so will you. There's a sacredness in becoming that demands privacy. Not because you have something to hide, but because what's growing inside you is too valuable to be exposed prematurely. The world is obsessed with arrival, but you are married to becoming. That makes you rare, that makes you powerful. You don't show every draft, you don't share every chapter, because some of the most important transitions in life are internal. They happen far beneath the surface. where applause can't reach and critics can't touch. It's not performance, it's preparation. And what you're preparing for is so much bigger than their approval. Some people chase relevance, others chase reverence. One fades, the other endures. You're not meant to blend in, you're meant to build something that lasts. But legacy isn't constructed in the open. It's built slowly, patiently, and methodically, like a master craftsman working in silence, because noise distracts, silence sharpens. Ask anyone who's ever done something timeless, and they'll tell you the loudest season of their growth was the quietest one of their life. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't documented, but it was sacred, because in those unseen hours, they forged habits that could carry the weight of their vision. They built capacity for the life they were destined to live. They fought battles no one clapped for. They made choices no one understood. But in the end, they emerged with something unshakable, a foundation forged in silence. You want power? Learn to say nothing. Learn to endure without announcing your pain. Learn to give without keeping score. Learn to win without telling them you were ever doubted. That's where the real force is, in the self-mastery, in the control, in the inner stillness that whispers, I don't need you to see me. I just need to see this through. You don't need constant praise. You need constant purpose. You don't need everyone's attention. You need laser focus, because attention fades, but focus fuels. And when you lock in, not for a day, not for a season, but for a lifetime, you begin to move differently. You're not pulled by trends. You're not swayed by opinions. You're driven by vision, and vision is loyal to those who protect it. Not every dream belongs on display. Some need to be covered, cultivated, and committed to in quiet. And listen, silence doesn't mean stillness. You can be making moves no one knows about. You can be gaining ground in the dark. You can be multiplying while the world assumes you're stagnant. That's the advantage of moving in silence. By the time they hear you, it's already done. There's a reason snipers don't make noise. There's a reason strategists don't talk in the war room. There's a reason kings don't explain every move they make. They understand the value of discretion, of mystery, of mastering the art of quiet motion. You've got to be okay with looking like nothing while becoming everything. Don't broadcast your hunger, channel it. Don't narrate your storm, navigate it. The fruit doesn't explain the root, it just grows. That's your role, to develop yourself in silence until you've become the evidence that greatness never needed noise. You weren't born to beg for visibility. You were born to manifest excellence, and excellence makes its own introduction. People who think you're behind, let them talk. They only see what's visible, but you've been grinding on a level they can't even comprehend. Your results will humble the ones who thought they had you figured out. Your glow up will be loud enough to silence every doubter. That's what happens when you refuse to quit during the quiet. You become the kind of person whose silence carried more strength than someone else's scream. Because in this life, everybody can speak, few can stand. Everybody can make noise, few can make impact. Everybody can start, few can sustain. You're one of the few. You know how to carry weight in private. You know how to pray when no one's listening. You know how to discipline yourself when no one's watching. And that's why your rise will be different. It won't need to be announced. It won't require an invitation. It won't ask for permission. It'll simply unfold, like sunrise after the longest night. And when it comes, when your moment arrives, you won't need to convince anybody. Your preparation will speak for itself. Your excellence will walk into the room before your name is even mentioned. That's what the quiet seasons are teaching you. To trust the work, to trust the investment, to trust that silence is not the absence of progress, but the evidence of something real being born. Let others crave recognition. You crave results. Let them chase aesthetics. You chase authenticity. Let them seek validation. You seek transformation. And while they're performing for the world, you're preparing for your calling. Because this isn't about being liked, it's about being undeniable, about walking into every environment and shifting it, not with your words, but with your presence. And you can't fake that. You can't shortcut that. You have to earn that. So protect your growth, guard your focus, let your name be quiet while your character becomes loud. Let your progress be silent while your principles roar, because one day your fruit will be so evident, they'll have to ask, how did you do it? And your answer will be simple, in silence, with discipline, without shortcuts. That's the blueprint. No noise, just work. No boast, just building. No audience, just action. Because when your time comes, it won't be noise that announces you. It will be results, it will be presence, it will be power. And the best part, you'll know you earned it, brick by brick, choice by choice, hour by hour. That's the sound of real success. And it always starts in silence. There's something extraordinary about a person who chooses self-respect over self-promotion. In a world that rewards display, they are the exception. They choose refinement over recognition. They put their head down not because they're hiding, but because they're locked in. And that focus, that tunnel vision clarity, it frightens people who are fueled by approval. It challenges the insecure because it's not just what you're building, it's how calm you remain while building. While others panic to be seen, you stay grounded in what you know is becoming undeniable. You're not interested in attention. You're addicted to alignment. Your choices reflect a higher standard. Your time is invested, not wasted. You study moves, not people. You perfect your craft, not your image. Because you understand that confidence doesn't need a campaign. It just needs consistency. Let the world be noisy. That's its nature. Let it race, scroll, compete, and compare. You're sculpting, not a brand, not a persona, but a version of yourself that will exist regardless of trends. One that isn't shaken by silence, one that doesn't fold under pressure, one that never needed a stage to know they had value. And in that silence, something beautiful happens. You learn to hear your own voice again. You begin to filter out the static. You rediscover your rhythm. You no longer react, you respond with intention, with conviction, with power rooted in purpose. You're not delaying your life, you're designing it. That's what this quiet season is. Design, not delay. You're calculating, you're learning, you're rewiring your inner dialogue so that even in chaos, you remain composed. While others lose themselves in noise, you're mastering self-direction. You're not chasing visibility, you're anchoring velocity. Because what you're building has depth, and deep things don't shake when the wind rises. Every day you work in silence, you compound your advantage. Every decision you make behind closed doors becomes a declaration. I don't need to show them, I just need to show up. And you do, over and over again, without permission, without performance, without permission slips from the world. The best part, the silence has made you sharp, not bitter, not arrogant, but efficient, unbothered, unapologetic. You no longer feel the urge to explain what's sacred. You protect your energy like it's your lifeline, because it is. You no longer overshare. You outgrow the urge to be understood by people who haven't even begun to understand themselves. You operate differently now. You've learned that not every season is for shining. Some are strictly for strengthening. And that's exactly what this was, a strengthening season, a preparation ground. The silence was shaping you. It carved your patience. It polished your integrity. It matured your intentions. And when it's your season to shine, you'll do it from such a place of inner authority that you won't need to shout. The room will recognize the real thing when it enters. Your presence will speak before your resume. Your character will carry more weight than any introduction ever could. That's what happens when you build correctly, When you take your time, when you honor the unseen work, you become the kind of person who walks into opportunities prepared, not panicked. You don't scramble, you don't perform, you don't chase, you receive. And in that moment, you'll realize why it took so long, because you weren't just building success, you were becoming someone who could sustain it. That's the part no one posts. The internal renovations, the breakdowns that refined your boundaries, the rejections that taught you redirection, the quiet exits from spaces that no longer match your values, the unlearning, the solitude, the silent mastery of emotional control. That is the real climb, and it's invisible until it isn't. One day, everything changes. The call comes, the door opens, the right people notice, the right opportunity appears, and suddenly your silence transforms into resonance. Suddenly, your presence becomes the noise. Not because you tried to be heard, but because what you've become can no longer be ignored. And that's when you'll understand that you were never overlooked. You were being hidden for your own development, covered while your roots deepen, protected from premature exposure, shielded from the spotlight until you could stand in it with honor, not ego. So never regret the quiet grind. It's where your essence was molded, where your grit was formed, where your identity took root. Far from the pressure to impress, because those who are forged in silence, when they speak, the world listens, not because they're loud, but because they're real. The time will come when your name gets brought up in rooms you've never stepped into. Your discipline will open doors your ego never could. Your integrity will connect you to destiny faster than any shortcut ever promised. And in those moments, you won't need to rehearse. You won't need to pretend. You'll simply arrive as the product of years of unglamorous, uncelebrated devotion to the process. So if you're building silently right now, stay there. Don't get distracted. Don't get thirsty for attention. Don't let the noise convince you that it's necessary. Let your work breathe. Let your spirit align. Let your journey evolve at its own divine pace. Because real success, it's quiet in the beginning. It whispers through late nights and early mornings. It echoes in small wins that nobody notices until one day it roars. And that roar, that beautiful, undeniable sound of everything you've ever prepared for, finally breaking through, it will shake the very ground you once quietly walked. That's what you've been building toward. Not applause, but impact. Not credit, but contribution. Not fame, but fulfillment. And the only way to arrive there without crumbling under the weight is to become the kind of person who understands the power of silence, the value of patience, the strength of invisibility. So keep moving, keep planting, keep becoming. When it's time, you won't need to say a word, because everything about you will speak. And the noise, it'll come from the echo of your work shaking the world.